Olivia de Havilland knew that Hollywood would never forgive her when she appeared in court in 1943. Behind her back, she was dubbed a traitor by her co-stars. Anyone who would listen was told falsehoods about her by studio executives. Her job search lasted nearly 2 years. Losing practically all of her friends was the cost of opposing Warner Brothers. This is the true account of how the most adored woman in Hollywood turned into America's sweetheart. In Tokyo, Japan, Olivia de Havilland was born on July 1, 1916. Lillian Augusta Rouse and Walter Augustus de Havilland, her parents, were British. Her mother had previously been an actress, while her father was a professor and patent attorney. Olivia's sister Joan Fontaine was born a year later. In 1919, their family's life abruptly altered. They had been living in Tokyo's International District when the globe was still getting over Globe War I. Lillian made the painful decision to leave Walter after learning of his infidelity, and she moved to California with both of their girls. For the majority of their lives, Walter stayed behind in Japan and maintained their distance. Originally residing in San Francisco, Lillian eventually relocated the family to the sleepy hamlet of Saratoga, which is located south of the city. She thought her daughter would be healthier in the warmer climate. Because their father was absent, Olivia and Joan's early years were influenced by this circumstance. Olivia demonstrated tenacity early on, even in his absence. Little glimpses of the profession that would eventually define her were her love of reading and storytelling. The de Havilland last name was derived from their family's origins on the tiny English Channel island of Guernsey. As Olivia adapted to life in America, her British ancestry helped her define herself. When Olivia was 8 years old in 1924, Lillian got married again. George Milan Fontaine, her new husband, was disciplined and stern. He rarely showed friendliness and imposed strict regulations. It was forbidden for Olivia and Joan to participate in extracurricular activities. Fontaine wanted total compliance. When Olivia started performing in school plays, the household tension increased. In the end, he issued her an ultimatum. She may quit performing or move out of the house permanently. Olivia made a life-altering decision when she was just 16 years old. She moved out and pursued acting independently. While performing in plays like Alice in Wonderland and The Merchant of Venice at Los Gatos High School, she had already fallen in love with the theater. Despite her stepfather's attempts to discourage her, she persisted with her talent. Then something unexpected occurred in 1933. The famous theater director Max Reinhardt was at the Hollywood Bowl putting on A Midsummer Night's Dream. Olivia's role as Hermia's understudy was chosen. Since she was only 18, it appeared to be a minor advancement. However, both the original understudy and the lead actress left right before the debut. Everything changed when Olivia, who had been awarded the part at the last minute, took the stage. The audience adored her performance. More significantly, Reinhardt recognized her potential. Reinhardt demanded Olivia's participation in the picture that Warner Brothers was making from A Midsummer Night's Dream. In 1934, the studio agreed and gave her a 7-year deal that began at $200 a week. The amount was enormous for a young adolescent just starting out. The 1935 release of the movie was Olivia's big break. She co-starred with actors Dick Howell and James Cagney, both of whom were already well known in Hollywood. Olivia, however, was no ordinary newbie. She performed quite well and had a natural presence on television. This was the start of something far larger. Her debut came in 1935 with Warner Brothers' daring film Captain Blood, which was released during the Great Depression. De Havilland and Flynn, two relatively unknown performers, were given starring parts by the studio as a risk. Her role was that of Arabella Bishop. Peter Blood, an Irish doctor who becomes a pirate, is opposite Flynn's spirited niece of a Jamaican plantation owner. August to October of 1935 was the time frame for filming. The movie was well received upon its December 28 release and received 4 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture. De Havilland became a rising celebrity as a result of it, as audiences were introduced to her grace and charm. There was no denying her and Flynn's chemistry. After appearing in 8 movies together, they rose to prominence as one of Hollywood's most adored on-screen partners. Their subsequent major hit was the Technicolor extravaganza The Adventures of Robin Hood, which was shot between September 1937 and January 1938. Maid Marian, played by de Havilland, could have been just another damsel in distress. Rather, she gave Marian courage and intelligence. Prepared to take any and all risks in order to aid Robin Hood and his comrades. The movie was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Picture after its May 14, 1938, release and quickly became a classic. However, despite the achievement, de Havilland felt stuck. Her roles were consistent. She was the dainty love interest standing next to a brave man. Despite the fact that viewers loved her in these movies, she desired more. She desired characters with nuance, ones who advanced the plot rather than merely bolstering it. With Gone with the Wind, 1939, that opportunity was at last presented. Her role as Melanie Hamilton was made possible by Warner Brothers lending her to producer David O. Selznick. From her typical roles, it was a significant change. Melanie possessed a calm strength that made her memorable, despite the fact that she was neither glamorous nor action-oriented. Filming under director Victor Fleming started in January 1939. Following George Cukor's replacement, Clark Gable played Rhett Butler, while de Havilland co-starred with Vivien Leigh as Scarlett O'Hara. The picture was dominated by Leigh's performance, but de Havilland's portrayal of Melanie gave the character a depth that viewers found compelling. Melanie was much more than Scarlett's kind buddy because of her warmth and fortitude in the part. The movie made its debut at Atlanta's Loew's Grand Theatre on December 15, 1939. The film turned out to be one of the most popular ever. De Havilland received her first nomination for Best Supporting Actress at the Academy Awards. The honor was given to her co-star, Hattie McDaniel, who became the first African American to win an Oscar. Nevertheless, the nomination demonstrated that de Havilland was more than just your average romantic partner. Melanie was a watershed. The part called for nuance and emotional nuance, instead of only grace and beauty. It gave Havilland a glimpse of her potential and what her career had been lacking. She no longer desired to play the naive girl in male-centric movies. She preferred challenging, nuanced personalities. Change, however, did not appeal to Warner Brothers. She had had enough of them giving her the same kinds of roles. It would be difficult for her to get what she wanted. In 1943, Olivia de Havilland filed a lawsuit against Warner Brothers, dramatically altering Hollywood. During that period, actors had limited authority over their careers. They were given long-term contracts by the studios, which also determined what parts they might play. Warner Brothers has employed de Havilland since 1936. Although her contract was set to expire after a year, the studio continued to extend it. Every time she declined a role or fell ill, they employed a provision known as suspension. They were able to pause her contract as a result, so she would never be fully free. She had served 7 years by 1943, but Warner Brothers insisted she was still entitled time. She chose to defend herself. De Havilland sued the studio on August 23, 1943. She based her argument on Section 2855 of the California Labor Code, which stated that no contract for personal services may be longer than 7 years. She made a very clear point: suspensions shouldn't go beyond that. She would establish a precedent that might alter the entire industry if she prevailed. Over a year passed during the conflict. Warner Brothers tried their best to prevent her. They attempted to destroy her career, blacklisted her, and warned other studios not to hire her in letters. However, de Havilland was not going to give up. She won her case in the California Court of Appeal on December 8, 1944. According to the ruling, 7 years did not refer to 7 years of continuous employment interspersed with suspensions, but rather to 7 calendar years. The de Havilland law was established as a result of this decision. It ended the studio's power to bind actors to perpetual contracts. There was a price for winning the lawsuit, though. Legal fees had cost de Havilland $13,000, which is currently over $230,000. She, too, had been unemployed for nearly 2 years. Her career was thought to be over by many. She then disproved everyone's assumptions in 1946. She took on a role of her own after signing with Paramount Pictures. She was honored with the Academy Award for Best Actress for her impactful performance. In a single movie, she went from being banned to winning an Oscar. She received another Academy Award 3 years later for the film The Heiress, which demonstrated her versatility and depth as an actress. She starred in The Snake Pit, one of the earliest Hollywood movies to deal with mental illness. In between, her status as one of the greatest actors of her era was cemented by the portrayal, which also won her another Oscar nomination. Although not everyone backed her, de Havilland's battle made her a hero to many actors who had been stuck in unfair contracts. Even her sister, actress Joan Fontaine, acknowledged that Hollywood owed Olivia a lot. She was viewed by studio officials as a troublemaker. She was branded spoilt by Jack Warner, who attempted to destroy her career, and he never showed her forgiveness for her actions. A fear of upsetting the studios caused some performers to turn away from her. However, she had ultimately transformed Hollywood. Flynn, Errol, and Olivia de Havilland were among Hollywood's best on-screen partners. They appeared in 8 films together from 1935 until 1941. Audiences thought their romance had to be genuine because of their intense connection. The charming Australian actor Flynn met de Havilland at Warner Brothers in 1935 and was immediately captivated by him. At the age of 26, he was charming and self-assured. She was warm, elegant, and 19 years old. They demonstrated their uniqueness in their debut movie, Captain Blood. They became legendary 3 years later thanks to Robin Hood's exploits. They had a complex connection off-screen. Since Flynn was married to actress Lily Demeta, de Havilland acknowledged that she had feelings for him but chose not to pursue them. In contrast, he had little trouble expressing his love. During a lavish ball celebrating King George VI's coronation in 1937, Flynn expressed his desire to spend time with her. She refused him, telling him to work out his marital problems first. Never did he. He claimed in his memoirs years later that he had loved her very much. Although shocked, de Havilland was moved when she read it. She acknowledged that, even decades after his passing in 1959, she had never thought their relationship was unimportant. Even more compelling were their films because of their unsaid love. At first, they respected one another. But tensions increased over time. De Havilland became irritated at being stereotyped as the girl in Flynn's swashbuckling movies. Although Warner Brothers continued to match them together, she desired more difficult assignments. Due to her fight for better possibilities, she occasionally clashed with Flynn in the studio. It was made worse by Flynn's actions. He was well known for his drinking, parties, and practical jokes, some of which were directed at de Havilland. In the Santa Fe Trail scene in 1940, he staged it such that only the back of her head was visible and his face was in the forefront. She thought that because she was seeing Jimmy Stewart at the time, he did it out of jealousy. By 1941, when they shot They Died with Their Boots On, tensions had reached a high point. When he directly asked de Havilland whether she would like to collaborate with him again, she changed her mind. Even though they were under stress, their last scene together was incredibly poignant. Looking into de Havilland's eyes, Flynn, in his role as General Custer, remarked, "It has been a very gracious thing to go through life with you, ma'am." The words were more than merely scripted lines. They carried weight, signaling the end of their collaboration on screen and perhaps more. Olivia de Havilland's romantic life was as complicated as the movies she acted in. The fact that she declined Jimmy Stewart's proposal of marriage was one of the most unexpected events. He was one of the most well-liked actors in Hollywood, renowned for being charming and grounded. There had been a lot of gossip columns about their connection, particularly after he accompanied her to the 1939 premiere of Gone with the Wind. Despite the widespread belief that they would elope, she declined his proposal when he made it sometime in the late 1930s or early 1940s. She wasn't sure if he was really prepared for commitment. At the time, they were unaware that de Havilland had already fallen in love with someone else. When In This Our Life was being filmed in 1941, director John Huston had come into her life. He was not at all like Stewart. He had a reputation as a womanizer, a keen mind, and a rebellious attitude. He has a wife as well. The course of their affair continued despite this. They were deeply connected by their mutual appreciation of literature and the arts, and de Havilland appreciated his intelligence and wit. Their relationship, however, was far from steady. Huston has a complicated love past and an untidy personal existence. Her rejection of Stewart had an impact on more than just her personal life. She was given the opportunity to play Mary Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life in 1946, but she turned it down. It felt awkward to consider collaborating with Stewart so soon after their romance ended. Stewart received an Oscar nomination for the movie that year, and de Havilland took home her first Academy Award for To Each His Own. Her romantic life was still in the news. She wed Marcus Goodrich, an author best known for his book Delilah, in 1946. Soon, cracks started to appear. Later, she learned from media that he had 4 previous marriages. The marriage turned poisonous. Abused both physically and emotionally. One of the most startling moments occurred when Goodrich became enraged and flung a plate of beefsteak pie across the room because he had preferred kidney pie and steak. She put up with years of his erratic outbursts. She ultimately sought a divorce in 1953 after speaking with her clergyman, placing their small boy and her safety at risk. First, Benjamin. Her second marriage appeared to have more promise. She married Pierre Galanti, a French journalist who edited Paris Match, in 1955. Her memoir, Every Frenchman Has One, playfully chronicled her difficulties assimilating into French culture after she relocated to Paris. Their lives together appeared to be good for a while, and they had a daughter named Giselle. But they split up by 1962. Rather than immediately ending their marriage, they stayed legally married for an additional 17 years, officially ending their union in 1979. Even after their love affair ended, they remained close. De Havilland provided Galanti with care after he became ill until his passing in 1998. In 1955, Olivia de Havilland took a risky move. She married Pierre Galanti and left Hollywood at the age of 39 to live in Paris. An executive editor of Paris Match and a writer from France. In a peaceful haven away from the demands of the movie business, they moved into a 3-story home close to the Bois de Boulogne. This action was more than just a personal decision. Her career took a significant change at that time. Rather than accepting every position that was presented to her, she started to be picky and only accepted assignments that fit her developing artistic vision. In 1964, she played one of her most iconic roles at this time. Robert Aldrich directed the psychological thriller Hush, Hush, Sweet Charlotte, in which she starred. Even before she joined the cast, the movie was going viral. Originally selected to play Miriam alongside Bette Davis, Joan Crawford had to leave the role due to illness and behind-the-scenes conflicts. After assuming the part, de Havilland gave a plot full of tension and treachery a touch of refinement and subdued danger. The movie was a hit and received 7 nominations for Academy Awards. It focused on Charlotte Hollis, portrayed by Davis, a lady troubled by the enigmatic death of her lover decades prior. The film's dark turns, which revealed startling truths about deceit and greed, were largely attributed to de Havilland's character. This performance marked a significant turning point in her career. Her role as a noble heroine and love lead has been well known. She was now, however, assuming more challenging assignments that showcased a different aspect of her abilities. Acting was not all there was to life in Paris. She attended important events like the Cannes Film Festival, became fluent in French, and embraced European culture. She was freed from the fast-paced world of Hollywood. She developed her own career instead, only accepting positions that genuinely piqued her interest. Younger actresses were beginning to be preferred by the film business by the 1970s. However, de Havilland wasn't prepared to leave. She moved into theater and television, discovering new platforms to display her skills. Her role as Dowager Empress Maria Fyodorovna in the television drama Anastasia, The Mystery of Anna, in 1986 brought her significant praise. Hollywood was no longer providing women of her generation with the historical and dramatic roles that television allowed her to play. And she went back to the theater. She had previously explored this passion in her profession. She demonstrated her versatility outside of movies in the 1950s when she starred in Romeo and Juliet and Candida on Broadway. Now that she was in her latter years, theater performance gave her the opportunity to interact with audiences in a closer manner. It was more than simply a professional choice for her to switch to theater and television. She had more time for her family as well. She was stable in Paris while raising her 2 children, Giselle Galanti from her second marriage and Benjamin Goodrich from her first. She was able to balance her personal life and profession, something that many of her peers found difficult to do. Even after she stopped performing in the late 1980s, her reputation grew. One of the greatest accolades of her life was bestowed upon her in 2017 at the age of 101. Queen Elizabeth II became the oldest person to be awarded a Dane Commander of the Order of the British Empire. Days before her 101st birthday, she referred to it as the most satisfying birthday gift. Since she was too old to attend the ceremony in London, the award was given in the British Embassy in Paris. She was the recipient of numerous more honors over the years. For her contributions to American culture, she was given the National Medal of Arts by President George W. Bush in 2008. She received the Legion of Honor from French President Nicolas Sarkozy in 2010 in recognition of her contributions to the film industry and her new nation. As a cultural icon as well as an actor, these honors represented a lifetime of accomplishments. Although Joan Fontaine and Olivia de Havilland were 2 of Hollywood's most gifted actors, their relationship was tainted from the beginning. Having been born only 15 months apart, they shared many similarities. Both received praise from critics, won Academy Awards, and rose to fame during Hollywood's heyday. These similarities caused them to drift farther apart rather than closer. Nearly a century passed during their rivalry, and turned into one of the most notorious rivalries in Hollywood's past. Childhood was the beginning of their problems. Joan always thought Olivia was the one their mother preferred. She always felt like she was second best, and her bitterness only became worse with time. Frequently, and occasionally violently, the sisters quarreled. Olivia was accused of tearing up Joan's second-hand clothing and even breaking Joan's collarbone during a furious quarrel outside a swimming pool. Joan's mother made matters worse when she chose to pursue a career in acting by requiring that she change her name. She was not allowed to use the de Havilland family name since it would put her in direct competition with Olivia. Joan ultimately adopted her stepfather's last name, Fontaine. However, she felt as though she didn't quite fit in because of the change. As they became older, their rivalry became more visible. In 1942, they became the first siblings to ever compete against one another for the Oscar for Best Actress. While Joan was suspected, Olivia was nominated for Hold Back the Dawn. Joan prevailed, but rather it being a happy occasion amongst sisters, it just served to increase tension. Joan ignored Olivia's attempts to congratulate her as she stepped up to accept the medal. Olivia felt shamed. Olivia gained her retribution when she won her own Oscar 5 years later for To Each His Own. Joan extended her hand to shake hers, but Olivia simply passed by her. There were sporadic attempts at reconciliation during the decades-long conflict. They attended a couple of Hollywood parties together in the 1960s, but nothing really strengthened their relationship. Later, Joan wrote in her autobiography, "I married first, won the Oscar before Olivia did," reflecting on their competition. "She'll be furious because I beat her to it if I pass away before." Olivia, then 97, issued a brief statement expressing her sorrow after Joan died in 2013 at the age of 96. She asserted that the animosity had never begun with her. When their mother passed away in 1975, their feud reached one of its most agonizing points. The funeral arrangements were handled by Olivia while Joan was on tour. Everything had been determined by the time Joan learned, including the cremation of their mother. Joan was quite angry. She said that Olivia had not informed her of their mother's passing and that she had to learn about it from someone else. None of the sisters spoke to one another during the funeral. Since then, their relationship has only gotten worse. Later, Joan learned that her daughters, feeling deceived, had continued to communicate with Olivia in secret. She cut off contact with her own kids. In contrast, Olivia consistently maintained that her actions were loving, even if she acknowledged that she had occasionally been defensive. They had more than simply a personal rivalry. It followed them about throughout their work. Both of them worked hard to establish themselves and didn't rely on family ties to succeed. Their personal lives became entangled in their conflict, and they frequently vied for parts. Actor Brian Aherne, whom Joan married, had dated Olivia before. It was perceived by many as a premeditated effort to irritate Olivia. For her role in Feud, Bette, and Joan, Olivia de Havilland filed a lawsuit against Ryan Murphy Productions and FX Networks in 2017. The renowned rivalry between Bette Davis and Joan Crawford was the main subject of the series. De Havilland was 101 years old when she was portrayed by Catherine Zeta-Jones. She had established herself as one of Hollywood's most respectable characters. However, the program portrayed her as a gossip who disparaged other celebrities. In one moment, she was seen using a word she never used, bitch, to describe her sister, Joan Fontaine. She thought it was entirely different that she had actually referred to her as a dragon woman. FX was accused of using her name and likeness without her consent in her complaint. She said that the show had fabricated sequences, such as a fictitious interview at the Academy Awards in 1978. She had avoided Hollywood rumors for decades. And now a television program was presenting her as someone she wasn't. Her attorneys cautioned that allowing this type of representation would hurt other public figures down the road. When the lawsuit made it all the way to the California Court of Appeal in 2018, it became a national story. The judges decided that Feud was protected by the First Amendment and ruled in favor of FX. Instead of rigorously adhering to facts, they determined that the play was a creative work that depicted history. The court ruled that public personalities had no control over their portrayal. An important legal precedent was established by this decision, which made it evident that filmmakers were free to use artistic license when retelling true stories. It was a tragic defeat for de Havilland. Her legal battle came to an end in March 2018 when the U.S. Supreme Court declined to hear the case. Additionally, she was mandated to cover FX's legal costs. For some, the decision represented a win for artistic expression. While others believed it exposed celebrities to deceptive representations, de Havilland was quite dissatisfied. She felt that other prominent figures were put at jeopardy and that her rights were disregarded in the decision. Olivia de Havilland died peacefully at home in Paris on July 26, 2020. At 104, she passed away from natural causes, bringing an era to a close. People from all across the world sent in their tributes. She is an incalculable talent, according to the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. She opened doors for many people, according to actor Jared Leto, who called her a class act. She was more than just a fantastic actress who died. It was a historic occasion. Although Olivia de Havilland was a former Hollywood star, the Golden Age had lost one of its greatest characters. She was a combatant, a trailblazer, and a woman who played a role in the industry that few others could. Her films, court cases, and unwavering spirit endure, serving as an inspiration to both spectators and actors for generations to come.